You know, have you ever been told, wow, you're so mature for your age? And it always sounds like a compliment, right? But what we're going to get into today is the hidden cost of that maturity, the psychological weight that kids carry when they're forced to become adults way too soon.
It all starts with this one silent thought. A kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, looks at a parent who's struggling and just thinks, if I don't hold everything together, no one will. And in that one moment, a switch just flips. It's almost instinctual. That's the moment the child disappears and the caregiver takes over.
And you know what's so heartbreaking about it? The world actually praises these kids. People say, oh, you're so responsible, or you're just so strong. But what nobody ever asks is, what's the price of that strength? This is where a kid's own needs, their own childhood, gets buried under all that adult responsibility.
Yeah, there's actually a name for this. It's called parentification. And just to be clear, this isn't about a kid doing more chores around the house. We're talking about a child becoming the family's peacekeeper, their emotional therapist, or even the protector for the very adults who were supposed to be protecting them.
And when you look at it side by side, the contrast is, well, it's stark. A normal childhood is all about receiving care, about learning and growing. But for a parentified child, it's the complete opposite. They're the ones giving the care, managing their parents' emotions, and pushing their own needs way, way down. It's a total role reversal.
And this isn't just an emotional thing. It literally rewires a developing brain. Constantly being on alert for adult problems creates this state of hypervigilance. You're always scanning the room for danger, you're walking on eggshells. You learn really fast that your needs are dangerous, but their needs are urgent.
So how does a kid cope with all this? Well, they develop a new identity, a kind of survival mask. They learn to perform being okay, being competent, being stable. And they get so good at wearing this mask that after a while, even they can forget it's just a performance they put on to get by.
And this performance, it can look a lot of different ways. The kid might become the peacekeeper, always trying to stop fights. Or they're the emotional thermostat, constantly trying to manage the mood of the room. They become the quiet achiever, the therapist friend, or maybe the saddest one, they're the one who never ever asks for anything.
So this brings up a huge question, doesn't it? I mean, why would any kid willingly take on all of this? It just seems to go against everything we know about being a child.
And the answer is just devastatingly simple. It's not a choice, not really. It's a deep biological survival instinct. When a kid doesn't feel safe, they will do anything to keep that connection to their caregiver. They will literally abandon themselves so they won't be abandoned.
Okay, so what happens when this child grows up? Well, here's the real tragedy. The very same survival patterns that saved you as a kid, they become these invisible prisons in your adult life. The thing that kept you safe back then starts to suffocate you now.
And you can see these prisons in some really common patterns. There's hyperindependence. You just can't let anyone help you. There's this strange emotional numbness, especially when things are good, because joy feels wrong. You can't rest because your worth is all tangled up with being productive. You feel like a huge burden for just having needs. And of course, you're always over-functioning in your relationships.
Because your entire nervous system got used to living in chaos, a quiet, still moment can feel incredibly wrong. A peaceful environment doesn't feel safe to you. It feels like the calm before the storm.
And yeah, because of that, peace itself starts to feel suspicious. You're just constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. You can't trust softness or calm because your childhood taught you that stability was a myth.
And this just wreaks havoc on your relationships. Love starts to feel transactional. It feels like a debt that you have to keep repaying. You believe you have to earn affection by being useful, by fixing things, by taking care of people, because that's the only kind of love you ever saw.
And this is the real cost. It's living a life where you're constantly holding your breath, just waiting for someone, anyone, to give you permission to finally fall apart. But that permission never seems to come.
Okay, so that's the hard part. But here's the good news. There is a path forward. Healing isn't about fixing what happened. It's about turning inward. The journey from these old patterns to feeling whole again starts with finally meeting that child you had to lock away all those years ago.
The famous psychologist Carl Jung said it best: there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And what he meant is that this work, well, it's not easy. It means you have to face the parts of yourself you were taught to ignore. The scared, the needy, the angry little kid inside.
So this healing journey kind of breaks down into 3 big steps. First, you have to witness. You have to look at what happened and acknowledge it without judging or minimizing it. Second, you have to grieve. You have to let yourself feel the sadness for the childhood you lost. And finally, you start to reparent yourself by actively giving yourself everything you needed back then but never got.
This leads to a really tough, but also incredibly empowering realization. Nobody is coming to rescue that child from the past. You, the adult you are today, you are the one who has to go back, take that kid's hand, and finally say the words they've been waiting their whole life to hear.
So what are those words? Well, they're actually pretty simple, but they are so powerful. Things like, "It wasn't your fault. You were just a child. It's okay. You get to rest now." And maybe the most important one of all, "I see you, and I'm not leaving."
So, if any of this is ringing true for you, I really want you to hear this loud and clear. Your maturity, your strength, your sense of responsibility, those were never the problem. Those are your superpowers. The problem was that you were forced to build them because you had no other choice. But now you do have a choice.
Look, you might not have had the childhood you deserved, and that is a real grief that's worth honoring. You can't go back and change that, but you still have a future. And for the very first time, you are the one who gets to write it.